Today, on May 29, Russia cynically attacked Romania with a Geran-2 drone. The drone struck a residential apartment building, destroyed an apartment there, and as a result, 2 Romanian citizens were injured. And in the evening, Vladimir Putin claimed that it wasn't a Russian drone at all, but of course a Ukrainian one. But in Romania itself, they stated that no, the drone was Russian, it was a Geran-2, but it struck Romania after the Ukrainian air defense system had engaged. The Kremlin is now trying in every possible way to intimidate Europe, saying that it's the Europeans who are preparing for war, so they should get used to such attacks. And now NATO has finally responded to the actual drone strike on an actual apartment belonging to Romanian citizens, that is, citizens of a NATO member, but the reaction, as always, was, to put it mildly, weak. Although I wouldn't rush to conclusions just yet, and there is definitely something to pay attention to here because there is, as they say, a behind-the-scenes part of this incident. So let's discuss all of this together now with a clear head, after it already happened in Romania this morning. My name is Alexei Peci, let's discuss this topic together, but before we start, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave any comment, and also subscribe to my Telegram channel Peci News. The link to it is in the description of this video.
This has nothing to do with Russian aircraft. These are drones of Ukrainian origin. They went off course, either due to electronic warfare or for some other reasons because of imperfect technical data. They flew there and crashed. In this case, I think that most likely we are talking about exactly this kind of situation.
With these words, the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin commented on the Russian attack on Romania on the morning of May 29. According to him, it was supposedly a Ukrainian drone or a flaw in the Ukrainian air defense system. But nothing else could really be expected from Putin in general. But what actually happened? Let's go through everything step by step. On the night of May 29, Russia resumed attacks on infrastructure in Ukraine near the border with Romania. As a result, the radars detected a drone. In southern Romania, around 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 F-16 fighter jets were scrambled from the Fătăști base, accompanied by a military helicopter. As a result, around 2 o'clock in the morning, the Russian drone crashed into the 10th floor of a residential building in Galați on Romanian territory. A fire broke out in one of the apartments and 2 people were injured. And now, the spokesperson for the Romanian Ministry of Defense, Colonel Cristian Popovici, stated that the drone entered Romanian airspace at an altitude of about 600 meters. It flew about 10 kilometers, but at an altitude of around 150 meters, the radars lost sight of it. And it's telling that the Romanian Ministry of Defense admitted they didn't even try to shoot down the drone since it was too close to urban areas and this could have caused significant destruction. Yet, the attack on the residential building reportedly didn't cause that much destruction. That's the logic. As a result, the Romanian Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a super stern statement, and I'll quote it next. This incident represents a serious and irresponsible escalation on the part of the Russian Federation. We will officially communicate the consequences that Russia's irresponsibility will have for the diplomatic relations between the 2 countries. And then, a little later in the day, the country's president, Nicu Sordan, announced that the Russian consulate in Constanta would be closed and the consul general declared persona non grata. That's the result. Later, Romanian President Nicu Sordan stated that the Russian drone may have changed its trajectory because it was hit by Ukrainian anti-aircraft gunners. Next, I'll quote him. When the drones were passing through Ukrainian territory, some of them were shot down. One of them was probably hit over the city, Reni, and it changed its trajectory and headed towards Galați. Well, that's certainly an interesting statement. The point is, according to the president of Romania, the damaged drone flew about 10 more kilometers before hitting a residential building. But it's also important to note that according to the president of Romania, the responsibility for this situation, quote, obviously lies solely with Russia. As for the question of whether this incident will lead to the application of Article 4 of the North Atlantic Treaty, Foreign Minister Oana Toiu replied that the president of the country will clarify all this later. But there is a feeling that there is no point in these consultations. Let me explain here that invoking Article 4 of the North Atlantic Treaty allows alliance members to bring issues before the North Atlantic Council, which is NATO's main political body. Let me remind you that Poland already invoked Article 4 in September 2025 when almost 20 drones violated the country's airspace, and what happened? Nothing. However, it's important to understand that Romania might now be given more European funds to acquire defenses against drones. And now NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has stated that he is in contact with the Romanian authorities regarding this incident. Here is his quote. "We condemn Russia's recklessness, and NATO will continue to strengthen our defense against various threats, including drones. I assured them that NATO is ready to defend every inch of Allied territory. Russia's reckless behavior is dangerous for all of us." And so, in the end, the wild, unwashed Russians started either making threats or trying to justify themselves. During the day, Russia's chief drunkard, Dmytro Medvedev, this little man here, said that everyone should be afraid of this unwashed, wild Russia and that it will keep flying. And Vladimir Putin confidently stated, quote, "Let them give us all the materials, we will conduct an objective investigation, and only then will we assess what happened." Where's the objectivity in that, and what do these Russian creatures have to do with it? Are you serious? Really? Later, Vladimir Putin confidently stated that no, it wasn't a Russian drone, it was a Ukrainian one. Because according to his logic, similar Ukrainian drones had previously flown into Finland and the Baltic countries. And it's worth noting here that drones periodically enter Romanian airspace, and drone debris is found in border areas. However, so far they have not caused any destruction or casualties. The incident in Galați occurred against the backdrop of an increasing number of cases of drones being detected in the airspace of countries bordering Russia and Ukraine. And indeed, Ukrainian drones are flying into the Baltic countries, going off course due to electronic warfare measures. A week before that, an air raid alert was declared in the eastern part of Lithuania, including Vilnius, because of a drone, and residents were asked to take shelter. And at the beginning of May, several drones flew into the territory of Latvia. The largest incident involving Russian drones happened in September 2025 when they flew into Poland. There were about 24 of them, and these were exclusively Russian drones. And NATO, and this is an important point, in response to this incursion into Poland, launched Operation Eastern Guard. And now we've come to the most important part. It was after the Russian provocation in Poland in September of last year. The Poles received even more American weapons, even more NATO presence. And recently, the first F-35 fighter jets arrived in Poland. After the Russians started staging provocations against the Baltic states, literally yesterday it was announced that Germany and the Netherlands are creating a joint tactical headquarters in the Baltic states this year, which will command forces on NATO's eastern flank and help deter the filthy, relentless Russians. It was also announced that a new NATO army corps will be formed specifically to protect the Baltic states. And now, after the incident in Romania, NATO will have to strengthen this part of the eastern flank as well. And you know, I completely understand that many Ukrainians will now say, well, once again, this North Atlantic alliance couldn't respond to Russia adequately. But let's be pragmatic here. Such restraint by NATO is dictated by strict pragmatism and a strategy to prevent a global catastrophe. Yes, NATO does not want a third world war. And invoking Article 5 on collective defense, you have to understand, requires the consensus of all 32 member states. And none of them are ready to enter into a full-scale war right now. Because of incidents that the same Romanian Ministry of Defense today already sheepishly calls collateral damage and not a deliberate and planned attack on NATO's sovereign territory. Instead of a tough military response, the alliance chooses a risk minimization strategy. Strengthening air defense on the eastern flank, providing Ukraine with additional interception assets, and introducing strict, really strict monitoring. These will always be NATO's responses to such incidents, whether we like it or not. Although they do not qualify this as a deliberate and planned attack exclusively on NATO territory, there will be no invocation of Article 5. Every time they will call it collateral damage because the drone was flying over Ukraine and then hit Romania. And that's exactly how they will continue to qualify all of this. So I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.